Hey everyone, it's Antonette, your visionary nurse. Welcome back to another episode of the Visionary Nurse Podcast. Stay tuned. So hey everyone, it's Antonette, your visionary nurse. Welcome back, or welcome if it's your first time to the Visionary Nurse Podcast. Just to give you a little background, if it's your first time, the purpose of this podcast is to accompany the work I do as a community health consultant and coach and mentor for nurses. But really in general, it's just designed to educate, uplift, and support each other as we dare to be influentially visionary. We've recognized, especially over the last several years, that there have been so many shifts in healthcare and society in general, and it's important for nurses and so many others to look to innovatively expand our knowledge in a variety of settings. And in this way, we can gain more footing in avoiding things like burnout. And we can understand now more than ever the importance of creating sustainable and collaborative changes that not only cross sectors to influence access to care, but also how we navigate many of the societal changes that we face and even the challenges that might come up along the way. So for this episode of the Visionary Nurse Podcast, I've kind of been on this series of vision over the last couple of months and have been transforming blogs that I've posted on the Visionary Nurse website over the last couple of years into blogcast, if you will. And I recognize that they are more applicable, if not now, more than ever. Just recognizing how important it is to grab hold to some of these reflections and these understandings, and just recognizing where your vision, where your directive, where you're going, how you navigate, again, some of the hard challenges that we've experienced. If you didn't catch the last episode, it was entitled Being a Pivotal Pivot. I encourage you to go back and to listen to that one as well. You can catch the Visionary Nurse Podcast wherever you listen. So Apple Music, Spotify, you can go directly to where it's housed at podcast.co. And just, you can also go onto our YouTube channel, the Visionary Nurse YouTube channel. You can also get some of the episodes there as well too. So I really just want to use this time to encourage, as we think about already coming to the end of 2022 and going into 2023, and just thinking about, how do we take all the different pieces of what we've encountered, what we experienced, and even as you move forward in the next year, in the next decade, whenever you happen to listen to this, and just trying to transform some of the challenges that you may experience throughout life into a place that allows you to truly and sustainably be resilient. So again, a lot of the inspiration behind this podcast episode will be based off of a blog that I posted. You can check it out at visionarynurse.com if you haven't been there before, and it's just titled The Year of Visionary Resilience. So let's dive in and kind of reflect on what that really means. So as I kind of started off, over the last few weeks, months, and years, it's been nothing short of our ability to embrace what feels like a buzzword, resilience, right? So in thinking about just the understanding of when I first posted this blog post, it was smack in the middle of 2020, but recognizing a lot of the concepts are applicable to now. The title of that blog post was The Year of Visionary Resilience. And so I'm going to talk through some of those concepts, but really just understanding how do you prepare, especially as this year winds down and you go into a new year, thinking about how do you take some of the key moments, situations, challenges, circumstances that you've experienced in this year and any other year that you come across, any other challenge that you come across, and really transform those challenges into an opportunity to be resilient and have visionary resilience as you move forward in life. So, even over the last few weeks, months, years, if anything, I know many of us have had a complete stretch to our ability to embrace what feels like, this concept, this word that's been a buzzword almost, is resilience. With so much coming at our mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-beings, it can feel impossible almost to even just find space to embrace and attempt to be resilient. I know there's many people who have just thought, I'm tired of being resilient. I don't want to keep holding on. There's been too many hardships that have collectively and individually happened in my life? How do I even know what to do with all of these things? Now, as a disclaimer, I'm not saying that I have all the answers, even though I am a coach and mentor for nurses and often serve as a coach and life coach and professional personal development coach for many people. I'm not necessarily saying this is going to be your end all be all fix it opportunity and that I have established a coaching relationship and I can figure everything out. I don't know your unique situation, just speaking into in general, how we can sometimes take some of the major issues, the major circumstances that happen in our life and learn how to reframe them so that we can gain not only resilience, but visionary resilience, and in that being sustainable in our resilience. So what does resilience mean? Maybe you've never heard the word before, maybe you have, and you're like, hey, can I get a refresher? So to get to the root of it, according to Lexico, just a kind of definition site, someone who is resilient is able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult situations, right? So this is talking about the description of someone who is resilient. And I think a lot of us can say we have definitely had to withstand difficult situations. Some you might have recovered quicker than others, but that's kind of the baseline of it. But this second definition that Lexico provided also speaks volumes to me. And it's not just someone who's resilient, but something that's resilient. And something that's resilient is able to recoil or spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. Now, I don't know about you, but those words are heavy when I hear them. Bend, stretch, compress. Maybe there's things that you've experienced. If you're a nurse, in your shifts, in your schedule, when you're working in the hospital, maybe you're working in a clinic, maybe just trying to figure out how to balance it all. Maybe just as an individual, no matter what sector that you're in, at home with your kids, maybe in a work environment that seems really challenging, maybe just in relationships, you've been bent, you've been stretched, and you've been compressed, and you're trying to figure out, how do I recoil? How do I get back on track? Now, as a quick little side note, sometimes we are able to adapt quickly. Sometimes it takes a little bit more time. Just because you have encountered something that's a challenge doesn't mean that you are required to just bounce back right away. Sometimes it does require time. Sometimes it requires additional intervention. Sometimes it requires talking to someone else. But this is just looking at some of the general concepts of it, looking at the general understanding of someone who is resilient, and then again, something that is resilient, and just really using that to think about how we can craft for ourselves the understanding of having visionary resilience. Again, not only, from the last couple of years, but as you move forward in life. Now, again, I know some of these concepts can touch a deep level. I know for me personally, just thinking about the areas, the places, maybe you reflected when you heard that, where I've been bent and stretched and compressed in every angle. And again, on a societal whole and collectively, that has happened time and time again. And it's required us to think about what is working, what's not working, what needs to be changed, what needs to be fixed, and even more personally, what do I need to do to be able to withstand and sustain and come back to a place of being able to spring back from hard challenges in life. Now, again, I'm using this space just to kind of create that intentional space for you and even just build a little bit of encouragement to think about, if you haven't had a chance before, where have I been stretched? Where have I been tested beyond measure? And how do I get back on track? How do I understand my concept of resilience, and where do I want to go moving forward in life? And a lot of times when we are faced with these challenges, it can sometimes feel like failure. It can feel like we're stalled. It could feel like we don't know which direction to go. A lot of times it can completely throw us for a loop when it seems like, hey, this didn't quite go the way I expected, or this adversity or this challenge came up and I was not prepared to navigate this challenge in the way that I wanted to. And then again, collectively, when there's things that are experienced, you may try to figure out, how do I even have the capacity to be mindful of what's going on? How do I know how to respond to a crises or a challenge, or even just a small task that comes your way? And so again, I'm just giving you this space to say, you know what, even in all these things, even in the seemingly appeared stalled growth, failure moments, or appearance of failure moments, do not let those things stop you from pursuing your vision. Adversity, in my mind, a lot of times is the greatest opportunity for innovation and change. So regardless of where you are, if you need that space, if you need to take a minute just to say, wait a second, that was a lot. I don't know what to do with it yet. Let me regroup. But once you have that opportunity to regroup, whatever you do to regroup, don't stop. Keep going. So let's think about this and kind of unpack some of the things that may go along with it. So there's many of us. And again, I'll personally throw myself in there that, again, we might have these appearances of failures. We might have had previous traumas, job losses, furloughs, illness, things not working out the way you expected to, especially if you are inherently wired to achieve things on a regular basis. You may have found yourself completely rewriting how you are accomplishing what you're doing. Maybe you were in a 9-to-5 job and now you're an entrepreneur. Maybe you worked a certain schedule and now you don't anymore. Maybe you didn't have kids and now you do have kids. Maybe you didn't have a relationship and now you do. Maybe you had a relationship and now you don't. So you're thinking about, how do I process what has happened? What do I do with it? And even again, mentally recognizing that these circumstances do not define life. It does not define all of your vision. It may be happening in this moment, in this season, but if you've been tracking with me anywhere on social media or Instagram, I just really get this strong sense that this is a new season shift, and a lot of people who have been kind of waiting to see a major change in their lives for the better are going to see it. Now, granted, I pull a lot from my faith. I pride in really understanding that God has given me a vision and an insight and ability to kind of foresee things. I'm not saying that I have all these answers to things, but I often get just a level of insight from my Heavenly Father, God, on just different circumstances in life that He's allowed me to use to not only help myself, but just to encourage other people. And a lot of just what I've been sensing is just kind of a season shift in our society, where a lot of the issues that we've experienced, they might have knocked us off our rocker for a bit of time, but I think a lot of people have collectively gathered themselves, recognized the importance of not only their physical health, but their mental health, their spiritual health, their relational health, their emotional health, their financial health, and wanting to see, how can I take these things that have literally plagued on my fears and doubts, my past experiences, and transform them into something that will actually make a visionary impact and influence someone else. And maybe you haven't figured that out yet, but there's always potential for it. So again, what do you do when you have perceived failure, circumstances, stagnation, loss, whether it's temporary, whether it seems permanent, whether it seems circumstantial? What do you do? Now, something that I always encourage, and it's something that has stayed with me, a dear family member of mine actually inspired one of the quotes that I placed in the Visionary Nurse book. If you haven't gotten that copy, Visionary Nurse, 90 Days of Inspirational Musings on Being Influentially Visionary, I encourage you to get that copy if you're looking for daily motivation, if you're looking for a place to reflect on just these different seasons that we encounter. It's available on Amazon. You can also find out information on my website at visionarynurse.com. But one of the big things that they always encourage me to focus on is rest. Rest. And one of the quotes that is shared in the book, it just says that our greatest creativity comes out of an abundance of rest. Now, you might be saying, I don't have time to rest. There's too much going on in my life. There's no space. I don't have the support, whatever it is. And rest isn't always sleep. Rest isn't always having everything perfectly aligned so that you can just, go on a vacation or whatever. Sometimes rest is just giving your mind permission to rest. If you have a busy schedule, saying, you know what, I need to pause for a minute, clear my calendar and just sit. Or it might be actually taking the time to eat and drink something healthy, go outside for a walk, find some space to just let yourself process if there's major things that are coming at you. Rest might even just be getting around the right people. So you might have been in a lot of, toxic conversations. Rest might be resting from those conversations, or maybe just, pulling away solo for a little bit, not isolating yourself, but just kind of having a little bit of downtime to give yourself a chance to regroup. Especially when I worked in busy clinics as a nurse practitioner, when my schedule was packed, patient after patient after patient, and it was really challenging situations. My moment of rest would come when I left one room. As I paused in the hallway to touch the door handle to go into another room, I would just pause, reset my mind, take a deep breath, and say, this is a new person. This is a new family. I want to give them what they need, not what I just came out of. And that literally helped me sustain myself in what was a really challenging but growth-filled year in that particular setting that I had, because I just recognized that in order for me to be most effective, not only for the next person that I was getting ready to serve, but even for myself, I had to give myself space somewhere. And as you go forward in life, in your career, in profession, you're going to recognize more and more the importance of that rest and how much growth can happen in that. So anyway, that's just a little plug. Also, if you just need to go to sleep, take a nap, do that too. But a lot of times we just need to stop for a moment to even be able to have a creative solution to a crisis that's happening around us. It's that constant barrage of issues that come in that doesn't even give our mind a chance to just say, what is a logical, rational thing to do in this moment? So anyway, that's just a quick little tip from Antonette, visionary nurse, and just thinking about just, how you build visionary resilience. So there's a couple of different reflection points that I do want to share that, again, I have in the blog post, but that I think are really important to think about. Just 7 ways to consider making space to reflect and even hopefully achieve or create a visionary level of resilience for yourself in this moment right now and as you move forward. So one of the big ways that I kind of highlighted in this particular blog post and just sharing with you now is, number 1, we have to continually be willing to listen to wise counsel, especially when that wise counsel can see more of you than what you can see. Again, when there's challenges, there's circumstances, and you don't know how to figure it out, and you're literally like inside your own thoughts, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Sometimes you need someone who can see beyond you to help you kind of get through that process. Fear can easily cheat you out of the next step, and it can also stall you. And so it's just being important to not allow fear to cheat you from that precious and unique vision that you have and being able to take that next step. And again, sometimes you need other people, trusted people, wise people around you to help you see that, this is actually fear talking and not like, wisdom talking, to be able to continue to pursue what I need to pursue. The second kind of tip in this visionary resilience is sometimes you just need to have the space to actually even talk yourself out of your fears, letting your own self reflect and say, okay, where have I seen this cycle or this pattern before? Where have I've kind of been around the same people that evoke these kinds of fearful patterns or whatever that kind of take me off of my track, distract me from being able to take that next step. And again, the key marker in this is wise people from those who are just kind of sharing chatter around you. It's really important that you have the people that are there to simply just hear you, hear where you are, hear where you might be a little bit worried or concerned, hear what your visionary reflection is, and know where you want to go. And again, sometimes you also just have to be your own sounding board and say, let me just talk myself through what is important and what is not important. And even just thinking about, how do I talk myself through so that I don't apply a permanent solution to a temporary situation? My mother always says that to me, and I don't know if it's kind of a common reflection or proverb, but a lot of times it's that fear, especially in those very overwhelming situations, that you start trying to say, wait a second, this narrative is not sustainable for me. I don't want to start applying permanent solutions to something that might be temporary in nature. It may feel really intense at that moment, but let me hang on for a second so that I can get on the right track. And this is just, again, a plug to say your life is important. Your life is important. Your life is needed. Even in that failure, even in that issue, even in that circumstance, you are needed. And when you can get past this hard place, it will be transformational for someone else. So tip number 3 here is sometimes you need to be reminded of your story or your why. Even if you felt like you've shared it many times, and there's many moments where I have an opportunity to speak to other audiences, as one of a portion of my business is also being a motivational speaker to just encourage not only, again, healthcare audiences, but many different audiences, but just recognizing that you have to be reminded sometimes of your why and your story. And it never fails. Every time that I have a chance to be able to share some of the things that I've experienced, not only, number 1, does it help me, but it also brings light to someone else. And for you, it may be one person, but you never know your unique value, your unique story, your unique circumstance, how it's going to help someone else, and even give them an opportunity to recognize where they're going and you a fresh perspective on where you're going to. Tip number 4, and I cannot say this enough, have the right people around you, especially in season shift moments where you're, getting ready to have a big moment of change in career, a big moment of change or breakthrough in a product or a service you want to offer, a big change in a relationship. Protect your vision. Protect your vision. Even if it's something seemingly as simple as like working out, have the right accountability, but protect your vision. It's so interesting how when you're getting ready to take a big leap to change something, that it can be very easy that people try to come in and kind of hijack or usurp where you're going. Find the people who are going to cheer you on, give you wise counsel, and even give you space to just be you. And better said, oftentimes you just need the right team of people who can bring cohesion to the next leg of your journey. These are the ones who are interested in listening to you, wanting to understand where you want to go. These are ones that, they know you, they know your potential. They know that even if you're faced with a hard situation, they're here to support where you're going, and they're willing to firm up your vision and your journey. Tip number 5, and again, this is really important as well. Be okay with not having all the answers. I know that's hard, especially for those nurses out there. But your best answer could be, you know what, I don't have the answer right now, but I'm going to see what I can do to figure it out. The hard part about fear and trauma is it constantly puts us in the trap of what if and how and what do I need to know and how do I know, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not to say that you don't need the correct answers, but sometimes when you try to force answers that you just don't have, it actually sets you up for error if you don't want to have error, and even just to have to backtrack out of things that you weren't meaning to answer for. And so unfortunately, sometimes in these questions, we can start spinning in a hamster wheel, and it literally exhausts you and keeps you from moving in progress. But to help, instead try phrasing and saying, you know what? I may not have this, but I will come back to it. Or try asking yourself, who do I know that can help me get through this question? Or, why not stop for a minute and think about where I need to go? Who can help me take my next step? How do I cultivate my vision at this point? Even if I don't know, and you may say, you know what, I don't have the answer, but let me see if I can figure out someone who can help me find that. Tip number 6. And again, I constantly repeat about past failures, fears, appearances of failures, because a lot of times that's the big thing that kind of is staring us in the face that stagnates us sometimes. But don't let past fears, failures, or the appearance of failure, and I say that strongly, the appearance of failure, because sometimes we think we failed, but actually we just took a step in a right direction, but it didn't seem like what we wanted it to be. And sometimes it could just not work out, but you can always learn from that step as well. But those appearance of failures sometimes can stop you from expanding, from growing, or even trying new things. For me, over the last couple of years, as many of you, I became a garden person, I became a plant person. And there was this one plant that inspired a lot of blog posts that I had over the last couple of years that I literally thought, oh no, I did not, I didn't make this work. It's kind of like thinking about that one movie where the Christmas tree falls over and it thinks it's all messed up. I mean, I don't know. I don't have copyright to the name, so I don't want to say the name, but you probably know what I'm talking about. But it's just kind of that same concept. This plant was in this pot, and it's like the person who gave it to me was like, it's supposed to have flowers by now, or I was like, all the leaves were falling off, and I'm like, what's going on? Did I fail? Did I mess this thing up? And the thing was, number one, and this is a whole other blog post and probably podcast episode in itself, I didn't recognize the season that plant was in. It was actually in a dormant season, which I've learned a whole lot about perennials now, and that it goes into kind of a hibernation state where even though for the general development of it, it should have flowers at certain seasons and things like that, my plant was not at that point. Number 2, my plant needed to be in a bigger environment. I had it in this one pot, and it actually needed to go outside, and I didn't recognize that. And thankfully, there was a wise counsel who came and said, you should actually plant that outside and just be okay that it's going to do what it needs to do. And sure enough, not only has this plant flourished, it's bloomed flowers several times, and it has expanded and is building up new buds where I didn't even know it had. And now I don't even have to worry about it. So yeah, that was a plant story, but just think about your own life in certain circumstances and situations where you were like, oh no, it's ruined, I don't know what to do. But really, you just have to reevaluate what's happened, evaluate where you might need to go next, and even just recognize, you know what, I may be thinking too small. I might need to go a little bit bigger in order for this to work out. And a lot of times those appearance of failures actually are the springboard for your biggest successes. And then tip number 7 in this kind of understanding of visionary resilience is just dare to be influentially visionary. Whether resilience or your vision or your purpose or your dream or your day-to-day task are just, how do I get to the next step? Dare yourself, push yourself, even in the middle of where it seems like, I don't know how any of this is going to get worked out. Be confident that number one, you have learned something. And then number two, you have an opportunity to expand and grow. Now, again, this is not an end all be all, doesn't fix everything. I can't say that, I will be able to always give you all the answers to anything that you need. And a lot of times when you're in situations of previous trauma or there's been an impact in your life, you really do need to seek help. You might need a confidant, a pastor, a friend, a therapist, whomever, somebody trusted. But make sure you surround yourself. Find that. For me, prayer is a big thing. It's my communication with God to say, you know what, how do I talk through this situation and look for insight to be able to do that? But find the right places, the situations, the circumstances, the people that can lead you to embrace the challenge and then also walk forward with a visionary level of resilience. So anyway, hopefully that's an opportunity to encourage you as you think about, maybe some of you think about the end of the year, maybe you reflect. And for those who may want to know more about these kinds of concepts, I encourage you to think about taking my upcoming e-course. The entire course is on visionary resilience and leadership, and it's really unpacking some of these same concepts. Throughout the e-course, we'll talk through, how do you take some of these circumstances and really transform them to create a vision. Maybe you've never written a vision before. Maybe you don't know what you want to do. Maybe you kind of started your profession and now you don't know what the next step is. So a lot of it is just to kind of really help unpack some of these things, give you some tools in your toolkit, encourage you along the way, and give you more of just this. And, maybe an e-course is not your jam. Maybe that's not the direction you want to go. But stay plugged into this podcast. Go back and listen to some of the previous episodes, especially a part of this kind of series of vision, and just use it to encourage you. I also have the Visionary Nurse book is also an audiobook. You can connect directly to that on the website, visionarynurse.com. And if you actually click on either the Visionary Nurse shop or the Work With Me, it has the plans and pricing, and it gives you a way on how you can subscribe to your copy of the Visionary Nurse audiobook. And again, you can also just take the easy route, go straight to Amazon and order your copy as well. So I just encourage you to keep going. Your resilience, your determination, your influence is going to blossom. You are in a season shift and you are going to make a big impact. And I just encourage you to dare to be influentially visionary. So thank you so much. This was another episode of the Visionary Nurse podcast. Again, my name is Antonette. I'm your visionary nurse, and just so excited that you joined me as a part of this podcast episode. I hope that as you go forward in this moment and beyond, that you just recognize that you were destined to influence someone else with your story, your understanding, and the unique perspective that you've had. I hope you stay connected to this podcast. I hope you continue to be encouraged, and I look forward to seeing you dare to be influentially visionary. All right, take care. See you later. Be well.